The thing is at the end of the day, when you look at the Pixel on paper, it does seem like it's an immediate loser, but in actual real world experience, so what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. iPhone 17 Pro Max versus my Google Pixel 10 Pro XL 3 months later. So I want to give you my owner's review of both of these and the honest truth about them. After having these for quite some time, they've been out, this one about 4 months, actually getting close to 5 on the Pixel. This one over here getting close to 4. We're about halfway through this month here. Well, it's still early January, but we're getting close to that 4-month mark with the announcement of the iPhone 17 Pro Max. So let's just start by talking about the price. Now, the Google Pixel is no cheap phone. It actually does retail pretty close to the iPhone 17 Pro Max, but it's about $100 or so less. The deal is, though, is that the Pixel is always found cheaper than the 17 Pro Max, and it does have a slower chip, but overall, its actual design, its shape, its feel is on the same level, if not better, in certain areas. So for price to value ratio, the Pixel to me, I think, is a better value straight up at the initial purchase, because you are going to be able to find this on discounts. It usually gets discounted on certain holidays and certain times of the year way more frequently than the iPhone. So I just think most users are going to pay less for this, but you do get a lesser CPU. At the same time, the price for the value on the iPhone comes in the way of the long term. So if you're keeping this phone for a longer term, I find this is the better value because it does have more headroom with its CPU performance, and it does have, better resale value. But the Pixel is actually a very strong contender here. Let's talk now about the build and the design a few months later. Now, I gotta state that the Pixel has been probably my better looking phone choice of these two. I just kind of look at it. I love the moonstone color. It's more calming to me. I also find the shiny edges, while they've been doing that for years past, and the iPhone does have a cleaner unibody aluminum that doesn't get fingerprints, it still kind of looks nicer on the Pixel. It just shines a little bit more. The Google logo right in the center versus this one being lower, it also shines a bit more. I do think the camera bar looks better than the plateau personally on the Pixel, but the Pixel also has a little bit more dense weight. So just something about it, when you pick this phone up, it just feels premium. It's 232 grams. It's the same weight essentially as the iPhone, but it just feels a little bit more denser than the iPhone 17 Pro Max. 17 Pro Max feels soft and it feels very smooth in the corners, but the phone itself feels actually a little bit cheaper than previous iPhones, like titanium editions. Now, one thing I don't love about the Pixel is the bezels versus the iPhone's bezels. So let me go over here and showcase this. So if we take a look at the bezels on both phones, the Google Pixel's bezels are definitely thicker, and they kind of look like a previous gen phone versus these newer phones going to even thinner bezels. So I do got to give iPhone that. Also, the Pixel doesn't have the smallest punch hole, but it is still smaller than a dynamic island. So you just got to pick and choose what you prefer, but that's very obvious which phone you're using. If you see this, you're using an Android phone. If you see this, you're using an iPhone. The shape overall and design kind of feels the same when holding, but the Pixel, because of its aluminum edges, it just feels a lot grippier. It feels a lot less like I'm going to drop it. And the area of this camera control area, or this camera bar right here, makes it easy for me to press my finger right here and stop the Pixel from going ahead and slipping out of the hand. Versus over here, it's a little bit thinner, and I can do it a little bit, but kind of slips off there. So ergonomically, these are a lot closer than you would think. It just really comes down to, do you want shiny edges or do you want soft aluminum edges? They're pretty close overall, and that's my take on the build and body, with both of them giving you IP68 dust and water resistance, and both of them pretty good on the scratch resistance, but I would give the iPhone better on the front glass. It does have a more likely to not scratch front glass on these two. 3 months later, when it comes to the actual display panels, the Super Retina XDR OLED 120Hz has been fantastic for many, many years, and it continues to do so. One of the things that's really nice about the 17 Pro Max is with its reduced bezels and super high brightness, this phone just feels like a massive display with barely any interruptions and a really good media powerhouse for your day-to-day use. 90.7 screen to body ratio, 19:9 aspect ratio, which essentially just means this phone has wider than the Pixel, which is a 20:9. It's a little bit more narrow than this phone. So typing it just feels like a wider panel for most people. And it is 460 ppi. It's a little bit less sharp than the Pixel. We'll talk about the Pixel in a minute here. But it does have anti-reflective properties, so it's a bit better in that department than the Pixel. But generally, hits 3,000 nits, which is very good. And it looks a little bit more modern to me. I think it just comes down to simply that reduced bezel over there. Other than that, it kind of just seems like it has a little bit bigger display. And it's technically down to that stretched or thinner bezel like we've talked about before. It's enjoyable. It just doesn't take a good advantage of its size because it doesn't do split screen multitasking and stuff like that. Now the Pixel's display on the front actually looks like an older phone display. In terms of the bezel, the size, it kind of looks like a display that was out already on the Pixel 9 Pro XL and previous phones as well. So they need to update this to make it look a little bit more 2026 over here. But what's nice about it is that it's actually brighter than the iPhone. So its actual qualities, the brightness, the actual, sharpness, it's 486 pixels per inch. And what that just means is that the phone is sharper. And it's actually noticeable. You have to actually enable this in the Pixel though. You have to go down to settings and you have to scroll over here to display. And you're going to go down to resolution and you're going to put it in the max resolution right there. So that's how you're going to get that highest sharpness. But it is noticeable. But also what's noticeable is the bezels. You can also rotate this into landscape. You got to go here to home settings right here, and you can actually put this in a landscape mode, something you can't do on the iPhone. Let me go ahead and go to settings and turn that off now. Hold on. We'll go over here and turn that off now. If we go to the Pixel though, you also can split screen multitask, which is something that I always tend to enjoy. I've talked about it on multiple phones before. This one is going to be no different here. So let me go ahead and see what we have here. It's going to be no different. I mean, you could split these. Let's go ahead and go like that. You can just double tap those. So this is kind of what I want to see on the iPhone, just a simple split screen multitask. You don't have to go all out and do all this extra floating and all this other stuff that Android phones do. But I do think Apple should take a page out of Pixel's book with that simple split screen multitasking, which takes better advantage of this panel. So how would I sum them up in displays? Well, it's essentially that the Pixel has a narrower panel. It's not narrow, but it's narrower. It just feels a little bit more compact, a little bit thicker bezels, but sharper and brighter. So quality-wise, it's pretty close. iPhone more modern, Pixel probably the better sharpness and brightness. So you got to choose what matters more to you. Generally, I tend to prefer the Pixel for reading, the iPhone for just daily use because it's just wider and larger. It just feels more enjoyable as a phablet style big phone. It's incredible in that. Now when we talk about the software, this is classic iOS versus Android. I'm actually going to do a animations test between these two, so be subscribed for that. But the iOS 26.2 has been better than the original iOS 26 that came out. 26.1 was actually lowering the battery, but it came back on 26.2. And generally, the iPhone 17 Pro Max feels very modern. Liquid glass really has changed the feel of this. Once you get used to it, though, it's kind of at the core still iOS, but does have a nice paint job on it. It feels very different, though, in terms of control center and just navigating the UI, mostly down to these glass elements. You bring them down, kind of like goes across things like glass right there. So it just feels very modern. At the same time, at the core, the same thing. The Pixel, the material expressions over here, I mean, it's very nice as well. It's very simple, and I do like its feel as well. I think it's a very modern look as well, a very flat looking. Generally, though, it's very different and very Google-fied. You have the Google search bar down here. You go in here, Google search bar up there. If you love Googling things, get the Pixel. You're going to love this phone. Also, the Pixel does have I think a easier app drawer, just kind of alphabetical. You swipe down, your brain knows I'm going down to Y, I'm going down to Z, A to Z on my applications. I just think it's a little bit easier. Also over here, if you go to wallpapers and styles, you do have a lot more wallpaper choices than the iPhone. We're not going to go into the iPhone's wallpapers, but we do have a ton more wallpaper choices and AI wallpapers on here, more customizations with different icon themings and different shapes you can make it. So while the iPhone does have customization, I think the Pixel does a little bit more here. Both of them do get very good updates very regularly. But if we go into settings here, I used to think the iPhone was the most simple, but it seems like the Pixel stopped shorter or has just a little bit less going on. It's very easy on both of them, and both of them do have their own special features, but the Pixel tends to shine more in the AI, Gemini integrated right within the phone, and they're constantly improving the speed and the actual accuracy of Gemini's responses, and the language models are getting smarter and smarter. So I mean, if we're talking about pure AI, Magic Q, the Pixel's AI zooming on here, and this is the AI phone to get. If you do AI a lot, this is the AI phone to get. There's just no doubt about it. You do have yourself visual intelligence on the iPhone, and of course you could use chat bots on basically any, phone right here. Instead of like a Gemini key, they have a camera control key, which is pretty useful as well if you take a lot of pictures. But if you hold this down a little bit longer, you will get visual intelligence will allow you to ask ChatGPT or search the web. It's kind of like trying to give you a little bit of AI there, but it's still using a third party. So I think from the core ground up, the rewrite tools are available on both devices, but the Pixel just feels like it's built ground up for AI, and it kind of is. Well, you have the chip, the Tensor chip, which is more of an AI chip than a performance powerhouse. This is the phone to get if you want a truly smart smartphone. This one is the one to get if you like the strong Apple ecosystem with the iMessage, the FaceTime, the Apple products, and you're okay with having a little bit lesser AI, but definitely some of the ones that matter, like ChatGPT integration, which I think is one of the better AI models on the market anyway. So they're both pretty strong in software, but Pixel for Google-fied experience with true AI. And months later, I'm going to go iPhone for daily communications with iMessage, FaceTime, as well as the overall package of the ecosystem. Pixel has some great Pixel watches now. Not huge on the laptops and stuff. We don't see too many of those. They do have a Pixel tablet docks to a dock with a speaker. It's pretty nice as well. But the Pixel has call screening and better spam detection. So I do like this a lot about the Pixel. I think it's better in that department, and I do like the shape of their Pixel buds. I think they fit in the ear very nicely, but that is going to be personal preference, obviously. But if you go here, their spam protections are available on other Android phones as well, but their call screening features, which is also available on iPhone as well, it's just still a little bit smarter with the AI on the Pixel. So both of them, they're just fun. I could go on and on about all the software features, but I don't want to make this video too long. It's already getting kind of long here. Now, when it comes to RAM and performance, the Pixel has a saving grace. It doesn't have the fastest CPU, but it has more RAM than the iPhone, 16 gigs, and that's actually enabling better AI on here because RAM is important for AI. So Google really paid attention to this area, but that gives you more headroom, even though the CPU is not as strong as it could be on the Pixel. So we do have, 16 gigs of RAM. So that makes up for the fact that it doesn't have, Snapdragon level performance or Apple A19 Pro level performance. But this one has 12 gigs of RAM. So this is also giving you a lot of headroom. Both of these are very long-term devices with long-term support updates. And if you listen to Pixel users in the community, you'll hear them say, even though we don't have the fastest CPU, I have a 3-4-year-old Pixel that still runs fantastic. So this is a very optimized phone on the right, even though it doesn't seem like it's going to be the fastest. It's very well optimized. So it does give you very reliable performance long term as well, even though it doesn't have the best chip on paper. But from a gaming perspective, I'm picking the iPhone. If you want to run some of the latest powerful apps, I'm picking the iPhone. Better cooling all day, picking the iPhone. It does much better in this department. Thermals are better. For sheer performance, it's the iPhone. For smarts and for good performance, optimized performance, the Pixel is solid. We can't talk in the same sentence here until Pixel they put an actual flagship level beastly chip inside there. We just can't be in the same discussion. We can't talk about how it's smarter with its ground up AI, tensor built for AI type stuff. That's true. But I feel like more consumers still tend to lean towards more powerful when they're paying powerful high prices for their phones, if you get what I'm saying. They're paying big bucks for big performance. So I think Pixel needs to step up in that department while still offering that AI integrated within the chip. So let's get a tensor, or let's get a chip that you still do your AI stuff, but you also increase the performance to match that of Samsung devices or Apple devices. I think that will really boost sales on these products right here. 3 months later, when it comes to the cameras, this one is such an easy area to talk about because the Google Pixel is the phone I'm picking for camera all day, just for camera alone. It's just so easy to snap a photo, let it process, photos come out amazing, and it actually zooms smarter with its AI zooming super res, and it was pretty impressive what it was able to do. I'm able to get like photos you wouldn't even imagine on the Pixel just because the AI smarts can process these things. Now it does have night sight panoramic, but this is for photos. This is my favorite phone for photos. For video, it also does a good job, 4K abilities. I think it even does 8K on here. I don't ever really use 8K, but it is available on this phone, and the front-facing camera is strong as well. It's just the front-facing camera is not as wide as iPhone, still decently wide. Processing images is just phenomenal on the Pixel, but the iPhone is my pick for most users for this reason. It's super reliable, it's tried and true, and the sensors for videos are just amazing. And I think a lot of people like taking really high quality videos. You also have log and HDR recording, and if you set phones up on a tripod, both of these can do really great pro stuff on them, but I do think that the iPhone has the better video apps in the App Store. It has the better content creator type phone. I just think it's a little bit better, especially if you're a video maker. I think if you're a photographer, you're an Instagrammer, you do things where you post on, mostly photo work, I would probably go with the Pixel. It's easier to just snap that photo, get a great result, and get on your way. But if you're going with night mode, probably the Pixel. But if you're going with video, you need like more of a hybrid video and good photo machine. I like the iPhone more here months later. It just tends to give me that more reliable system when it comes to video. Now over here on the front, I also much prefer the front-facing camera on the iPhone. Pixel, Samsung, all of them need to get a more ultra-wide camera now that the iPhone brought one. It is very useful actually I've actually multiple times seen, taking front-facing videos and photos with the wide. It's just so much more useful. It really does fit more people in the frame. Battery life wise, the Pixel is a very impressive performer, just like the iPhone has been, and it actually has a bigger battery, 5200 milliamp versus 5088 on here, and both of these actually have bigger batteries than the Galaxy S25 Ultra, and they both last longer, but the iPhone wins. It actually lasts a couple hours longer than the Pixel, but the Pixel is a really strong standby performer. Like, it doesn't drain at all when just chilling, in your pocket, chilling on your car console, chilling on your desk. You know the drill. You don't like when you pick up your phone and you're like, where did all that battery go? That's ridiculous. That's annoying. And this phone doesn't do that. It adapts to your usage and it lasts and lasts and lasts. It also has nice power saving modes, just like the iPhone has low power modes. But generally, I find the battery to be very, very strong on the Google Pixel for, an Android device. But it just can't match and beat the iPhone in actual performance. When I'm actually pushing the phone hard, using it hard, the iPhone tends to last a couple hours longer, which is actually making me prefer this device to use more daily, because you want the phone to last as long as possible. That's a very important thing. Ain't nobody got time to be charging. And I'm not saying either of these need to be charged frequently. Both of these are a day phone, but the iPhone will get you that little bit more boost that you weren't expecting. That's why you hear a lot of people commenting about how impressed they've been with 17 Pro Max's battery. Now, when it comes to actual charging and ports, these are both USB-C Type 3.2, so they both charge in the same area. They also do have pretty similar transfer speeds, and they both support 6E, Wi-Fi 7, 6.0 Bluetooth. So essentially, these are very good connectivity phones as well. They're pretty evenly matched in that department also. So let's kind of get to the end of this video. Audio quality, pretty good on both of them. I also found that the iPhone was a little richer at the highest volumes, but The thing is at the end of the day, when you look at the Pixel on paper, it does seem like it's an immediate loser, but in actual real world experience, it's very close to the iPhone here in most departments, and actually in some areas it's nicer. So for me, I feel like it feels nicer in the hand, a little bit more compact. It also does have a grippier edge. I think it also looks better in this Moonstone. That's just personally me. I also like the camera bar here as well. It just looks super unique. It actually looks very premium. And generally, this phone performs very well, a lot better than you would think, not having a Snapdragon or an A19 chip. Where the iPhone really shines, though, is it overly impresses in the battery life. It tends to always give you what you expect in camera on the front and the rear. And I'm not saying the Pixel doesn't, but it just overly impresses on that front camera. And you kind of feel like you got your money's worth because you're going to get a good resale value on this. You're going to get all the major updates very quickly. Not that you won't over here, but it's the same thing for the iPhone. So they both have their pros and cons. But at the end of 3 months, I do think for those discounted prices, the Pixel's a better value because it's so close. Even though there's a few things better than iPhone, it's so close that if you get those $300, $400 discounts, it's definitely a better deal. But pound for pound at retail, I think the iPhone is more worth its retail price than the Pixel 10 Pro XL. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my statements after my ownership experience after 3 or so months on market. And thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'll catch you on the next episode. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.